What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about Bitcoin. What a phenomenal week it's been. We're up 6.5%. I shouldn't say it's too phenomenal in growth perspective, but in perspective of breaking out of this overall consolidation phase, yes, it is quite phenomenal. Not only did we break out of it a couple weeks ago, we back tested it last week, but we are getting that continuation this week. It's very essential to get that continuation to confirm that we are not experiencing a fake out and to go back below, right? We still have 4 days and 22 hours left in this week. A lot can happen in that time, but I think I speak for us all when I can say that we are confidently expecting the price to close green and even higher than we are right now, right? The goal, if anybody remembers from last night's live stream, the goal for Bitcoin this month, by the end of this month and by the end of this week, simultaneously, they don't close at the same time, right? The week ends 4 days, 22 hours from now. The month ends 1 day, 22 hours from now. So different days, but the goal for both of them, what we'd like to see happen together, is a close above this 886 level. We could go back down there. It's possible. We absolutely could go back down there and test that. In fact, that's pretty common to do, pretty normal to do. Back test your 886, and then slingshot, I don't know, spring loaded shot up. I can't get the words right. We would, like a springboard, launch ourselves into the stratosphere, barreling toward prices at $100,000 and beyond, right? What I want to go over, besides the importance of closing above this level, I think it really is important. That's how we know that we're on track right now. If we don't close above it, it's not the end of the world. It's not going to be like a negative thing. It's a very positive thing if we do close above it, whether it's this week, next week, or whatever. But I think, being that this is the end of the month over the next 2 days, and we've got the end of the week, in about 5 days, it would be nice to get both of these time frames to close together above the 886. I've hit that over the head enough for one video. Let's talk about something, or a different perspective that I want to go over that might signal what we're about to do. Right? When we do break above new all-time highs, that's kind of what I want to go over, what we could expect to happen, okay? And to do that, I think a great way to kind of paint this picture, as it were, would be to go back in time and compare where we are in this cycle to previous points in previous bull cycles and see if we can find out any similarities. This point specifically, I want to say, is not the only consolidation phase in the bull market, right? We've had other consolidation phases which were rather long, even like very short ones. There's several phases of consolidation, but the reason why this one stands out the most is because it is basically that halving, that post-halving, pre-halving time of consolidating, right? We normally find our high right before the halving. Going into the halving, we lag, we drop a little bit, and then after the halving, we're boring most of the time, right? Almost every bull cycle except for the first one. We're going to go over it. We'll make sense of the words that I'm laying out. You'll start to see the picture come into view. Hopefully I will too. I haven't done this yet. I'm kind of going on the fly here, but let's see if we can figure something out. So we're going to go around the halving dates, right? Because this is that halving date, halving phase kind of consolidation. Again, right, we had our very first bull market here, but no halvings, right? The very first halving was November 28th, 2012. So we're gonna go based on our second bull market here for comparison, okay? Obviously, we had a long consolidation phase here, and we had another one right here. We're going to compare this because this was around the time of the halving. The halving, again, being at November 28th, 2012. So it would have been this week here. We consolidated for a solid amount of time, okay? And the highs that we had before the halving were right here, right? When we broke those highs, whenever it was, we haven't broken our pre-halving highs yet, which also coincide with our all-time highs. But whenever we broke our pre-halving highs, it was off to the races. We didn't see a red week, you guys, for, let's see, what January 14th, 2013. We didn't see a red week until April. That's that's like 3.5 months, man, or three months itself of just moving straight up. That's awesome. That's pretty nuts. Just a quick little example there. If we go to the next halving, 2016, I think it was July 9th, 2016. I know it was July 9th, 2016. We had our pre-halving top here, right, in June. The July 9th would have been here on this week, right? That was our halving. Again, topped off before the halving and then bled out into it. Our little halving lag phase. Again, consolidation phases before and after happening, but this is that halving phase kind of consolidation. That's what we're going to call it in this video. When we broke this high, it was not off to the races. I mean, for the first 3 weeks it was. We did see an initial pump from the high, I suppose, to where we saw our like initial turnaround. That was a 46% pump. I didn't measure this last one because, dude, I don't think we're gonna get something like this time. I would welcome it, but $15 all the way up to $268, that amount of percentage growth, I don't think we're going to see it this cycle. So that's why I'm not measuring it. You can measure it for yourself if you want to know, if you're curious to know like what the percentage is, but I'm not going to measure it here. I've already wasted enough time, I think, talking about it. But here I think it is important to kind of consider, because that 46%, it's a large amount, don't get me wrong, but in 3 weeks' time, this is Bitcoin, this is crypto. This kind of growth can happen, and probably will happen at some point through the cycle, right? Again, pre-halving high, what the move looked like after the halving, after we broke out. Of course, we didn't have as many weeks. We didn't move up for a straight 3 months this time, but overall, yeah, that was the most exciting phase of the bull market. We did test back and found support there, all right? Something to note, I think. If we go back here, this is a little bit different. There might be a couple ways that we could extrapolate what the appropriate high to go off of is, but let's just see, right? So obviously, very clearly, our halving was in May. I think it was either May 11th or May 10th. I still can't remember. Let's just look it up, man. When Bitcoin halving dates, real quick. Halving dates. 2020. It was the 11th. Okay, I'll never forget that again. I promise. So May 11th, this week here. That's whenever the last halving was, right? The high prior to the halving, one could argue that this would have been our high prior to the halving. One could argue that this would have been the high prior to the halving. Both are accurate. I think we could measure both and kind of, again, extrapolate the data and figure out what makes the most sense to us. So taking this first high into consideration here, from there, when we broke above it, right, when we finally got above it was here, and we moved up about 18%. So the first time was like 46%, this time was 18.7%, right? And that took a little bit longer. It took 1, 2, 3, about a month to move up there, where the other one took 3 weeks. So around the same amount of time, an initial move up pretty fast over the first month after getting above the pre-halving high. Now, if you don't like that, if you feel like that's not true, if that's not an accurate representation of the data that we're trying to cover here, maybe you feel more comfortable with this. That does paint a little bit of a better picture, because whenever we broke that high, from that high there to when we broke out, I mean, dude, we just kept going, really. I mean, I guess you could call this a stopping point here because we pulled back a little bit. That was 40%. That kind of does line up with this a little bit more, to be fair, and that did take 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks, about the same amount of time, about the same amount of growth, however you want to call it, but let's be conservative. I think in situations like this, it's better to be conservative, expect less and be surprised with more, rather than expect more and be disappointed with less, right? So 18.7%, 46.7%, 4 weeks time here, 3 weeks time there. We continue out to this halving. Now, we haven't had the move, right? We haven't had it yet. We're anticipating it. When I say it, I mean the move that will take us to new all-time highs, right? Not just new all-time highs, but new or higher highs compared to the pre-halving high, which just in this case, this is the only bull market where we actually have the high at new all-time highs prior to the halving. And I've given my reasons why I believe that is, right? I don't think, counter to what a lot of people were saying in the beginning of the bull cycle, saying that this cycle's moving faster because we're at new all-time highs before the halving, that logic makes sense. But I've shown a bunch of reasons why I think that was right, and I'm just going to say it real quick so that we can move on. But I think the reason why we were at new all-time highs before the halving was not because the cycle's moving faster. In fact, if you look at this cycle independently from last cycle, you don't take the highs into consideration, we're literally moving right on pace. We're not moving faster. We're right on track. And in fact, I would say we're even lagging because, again, this consolidation phase has been longer than any consolidation phase around the halving that we've seen so far in Bitcoin's history. Most of the time, it's 5 to 6 months. This one's been about 7.5 months here. Okay, so if anything, we're moving slower. Okay, but I wouldn't say we're moving slower. I wouldn't say we're moving faster. I would say we're moving right on track. The only argumentative point there, again, being that you're at your highs, new all-time highs before the halving. We've never seen that before, but I would say, of course, we're at new all-time highs before the halving for the first time. This was the weakest cycle we ever had, right? Every other cycle were parabolic rallies with blow-off tops. They had phenomenal finishes. It was much harder to get back to those prices. By the time you were at the halving, you were further away. We had more dramatic bear markets those times. We had the most tame bull market and consequently the most tame bear market as a result. Of course, we're going to move faster and be above our prior all-time high before the halving. I wouldn't have expected that myself. I didn't make that call. I wasn't expecting that, but retrospectively looking back at it, it makes sense. It makes sense. At least to me, it makes sense. And that's how I'm making sense out of it. Let's get back on track here, okay? That was a weird breath in. I had like a burp and a breath that I had to let out. I don't know. I didn't burp. It was almost like a hiccup of a breath, but if anybody heard that or saw that, that's what that was. That was a little weird, but anyways, the halving date was April 20th this year, right? So it would have been this week here. So undeniably, the high prior to the halving would have been right here, okay? We haven't broken out of it yet, but from a minimum expectation, 18.7%, when we do break out of it, we could see these prices being achieved within 3 weeks to a month, 3 weeks to 4 weeks time, right? So from this high, 18.7% would be 18.7, essentially right there. That put us at about $87.5 thousand. From a high, oh, that's not the high. From a high to a low, that puts us right at our 1414. A lot of cryptos, Bitcoin itself even, have respected their 1414 this cycle. If we go back, we take this low here, or this high here, and we go back to this low right there, you can see we actually tipped the 1414, found resistance on it again right here. We've definitely shown respect, not just in Bitcoin, but across several different cryptos and even stocks, the 1414 this cycle that are crypto related. So that would make sense. That would definitely make sense. But also something to consider, that was the smallest amount of growth that we've seen. We're not going off of a whole lot of iterations here, right? We only have two to go off of. No, three to go off of. But the third one, again, the very first one was just very, very insane growth. I suppose we could say, 3 weeks away, 1, 2, 3, maybe 4. Look at that. 4 weeks is 56%. 3 weeks is 40%. That actually does kind of line up with what we've seen so far, actually. Obviously, it continued on. It was a much stronger move overall and more consistent, tenacious move. But that pace seems to be on par with what we've seen. And again, not for this cycle, but if you really wanted to be technical, the discernible high would have been here, making, again, the breakout move would have been this week. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks later, we had 40%. And that just, they all seem to be pretty close to that 40% level. I don't know, and maybe that's just making the data look like what you want it to look like. It's not that I want it to look like this. I really want to get an accurate representation. That's why we're looking at all sides here. But you got to be honest with yourself, or at least I feel like, honestly, this isn't cherry picking. It makes sense to me, and the fact that it makes sense, this way of measuring makes sense to me, and it lines up with the prior cycles, I feel like that could be something to run with. Okay, so let's run with that. We've already gotten our minimum expectation right there at the 1414. Okay, we've thrown out the 1272 as a minimum expectation, absolutely. And I've made it clear that I don't think we're going to stop here. I think that we are going to surpass this. I think this move by the end of the year will take us to prices close to 120,000. That's what I've been saying for I don't know how long now. It's been a while. But again, assuming that we move perhaps 40%, let's just say 40% up in the course of 3 to 4 weeks, which would, from here, put us at the end of November, right? We go 1, 2, 3, 4. If it were to be this week or next week, let's say that we broke out, that would be November 25th. If we're above the high this week, then I suppose it'd be 1 week back. It would actually be November 18th, but still the second half of November nonetheless. Okay, 40%, taking us all the way up, right up there to the 1886, kind of right up at that area, right there, at about $100,000. In fact, just above it. And wouldn't it be expected to find resistance around that area, right? We move up to 100,000. Everybody's expecting that we sell off at 100,000. Maybe we sell off just before it. We won't hit it. We'll find resistance before then because there's so much selling pressure. It's that magical number. And then we break through it. People are like, oh, we're not stopping here. We're going to go up. That I feel like that happens with these psychological levels, right? Like you either fall just short of it, or you break through it, and then once you've broken through it, that's when you find the resistance, right? It's one or the other. So either we're going to find resistance probably just below 100,000, or based off of this, what we're doing here, I would think we do find resistance just above it. We got the 1886 there at 105,000. 42% is a little bit more than 40%, but that is still pretty close to the range I think that we've been given. So something around there by the end of November, you guys, could be what we're going to see. That's all I'm trying to get to, right? And whether it's this week or next week, I don't think it really matters. I think we've established that this is completely possible by the end of November. Not by the end of the year, by the end of November, to see $100,000 plus prices for Bitcoin, right? That might be a bold call. I don't know. You know, it's probably less bold than the call that I made at the very beginning of this month when we were at the lows and everybody was expecting. We were at $60,000, guys. It was like $60,400, and I made the call that we would be at new all-time highs by the end of October. I said it would come in at the end of October, not the beginning. It'd be the second half, and obviously not the beginning because we were already moving down in the first half. But that's because that's what October does. That's what Uptober does, right? It's always the most bullish in the second half. So making that call for the end of the month, it made sense, right? We still have, again, 2 days left. What is it? 1 day, 21 hours left, basically 2 days left. Hopefully we do see those new all-time highs by the end of the month. If not, if it's next week, or even if it's in November, again, that still leaves us an appropriate time frame based off of what we've gauged already, that we would see something around this target if we were to see anything of an average move that we've seen to every single cycle we've seen so far by the end of November. And again, with the one exception of that small move, depending on how you want to look at it, I personally feel like from the last cycle, I think measuring from this high would be cherry picking more so than this high. That's your pre-halving high technically, but this is a little bit closer. This is the high right before the halving. You know, there's an argument to be made for both sides, and that's why I wouldn't say it's cherry picking either way. But if I really had to lean on one side, I would say this is the more cherry picking side. This is the more technical side for the parameters that we're establishing in this video. All right, for this sense of analysis. So again, there is a chance that maybe it takes us 4 weeks. Maybe by the end of November, we're only at 87,000. We haven't even broken 90,000 yet. That's possible. I would think that being in this consolidation phase, being in this very bullish cup and handle pattern, breaking it right now, I wouldn't think that we're going to move up at a slow pace. And to me, by the end of November, being up at 87,000, that seems like a slow pace. This is Bitcoin, guys. This is crypto. Whenever things pop, whenever things get into that breakout mode, it's wild, right? We move up very fast, right? In fact, I just wonder, with that same kind of idea, let's go back here. You know, whenever we broke out of this consolidation phase at the end of the bear market, it took us 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. We moved up 41% there, right? In 4 weeks' time. When we broke out of this consolidation phase right here on this move from the low to the high, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so not 5 weeks, we'll go forward. That was 33%, right? You broke out of this phase here, I would say this week. Technically, you started the move here, but you broke out of it this week. So from that low to the high, 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks later, you're up 26.5%. Right, and that's the lowest one so far. Still more than 18.7%, which we've gauged as our lowest expectation so far, right? And then whenever you broke out this week, 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks went by, 50%. So we've definitely shown that not only can we meet 40% in 4 weeks, but we can exceed that. Obviously, we can grow less than that as well, but we're not gauging it just solely based on the amount of growth we've seen on these breakout moves this cycle so far in a 4-week period. No, we're gauging it off of the specific breakout from the high prior to the halving and then what happens in that 3 to 4 week period afterwards, right? Because it seems 3 to 4 weeks later, each cycle, we found a relative high. This one, it didn't really top off too much, and the first one, it just kept going, but you did find a little resistance here in the last cycle you did. I don't know. It's just a time frame. It's just what we're working with, okay? If you don't like it, I don't know what to tell you, man. I'm trying my best here, okay? To me, it would make complete sense that we would see prices at $105,000 by the end of November. And I'm going to do some November analysis. I'm going to do that maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day. The next day is Halloween, so it might be 3 days, and we'll probably cover this same stuff a little bit more in depth, so stay tuned for that. You know, probably in 3 days' time, we'll do some November analysis. I will give you guys my official prediction for what I expect the price to be around by the end of November. I feel like I've been pretty accurate on my month-to-month calls. Sometimes the day-to-day calls, the week-to-week stuff, that can get, you know, I can be right, I can be wrong, but with the month-to-month calls, I feel like I am pretty accurate, right? That's where the long-term stuff is, where I feel like my abilities tend to shine. So going off of this now, just for the shallow amount of analysis we've done so far in this video, I think it would make sense. As of right now, I'm calling for 105.5 or around there, something above 100,000, probably not above 106,000, or maybe I should say not above 110,000 by the end of November is what I would be expecting, right? And it all starts whenever we break above our pre-halving high, which also is our all-time high. So very exciting stuff, very exciting stuff. It's what we have to look forward to literally over the coming month, man. We're at $72,360 now. I'm pretty confident as the days go on. I'm more and more confident, ever growing confident, that we are going to break out to new all-time highs by the end of this month, but it is getting to crunch time. We do have a day and 21 hours left. A lot can happen in that time. We could be all the way back down at 70K, even below that. We could be at 67K before this month is over. It genuinely could happen. I'm not expecting that, but it could happen. That's nothing to be concerned about if it does happen. It's actually healthy, I think, to pull back and find support at these key areas, right? A lot of people, I say a lot of people, I don't know how many people, but I've seen a few posts on X.com of people calling for 60K, 63, 65K, right? Even still prices below 60K, and we're at these prices. People are calling this a double top. I don't think it is, right? I want to address a couple things on that note before we end this video. I don't think this is a double top. Of course, right now it looks like that, right? But let's see, right? Let's go through here. I don't know. Let's go all the way back in time, right? Was this not a double top whenever you move down, right? Did it not look like a double top this week? Whenever you were from a high to a low, you moved down 11%, and you literally topped at your high there. Wouldn't that have been a more substantial argument than what we have now to be a double top? And would you call that, retrospectively looking back at it, would you call that a double top? Hell no. We blasted right through that. That's not a double top, guys. No, not even close. So to call this a double top right here is very premature, and a double top, by all definitions, this would be closer to a double top than anything, right? It's kind of a move ending thing. So if this were to be some kind of double top, that would mean that you're expecting prices to go below here. So if you're calling this a double top and you're calling for us to find support at 65K or 60K or anywhere above this low, automatically I gotta say you don't know what you're talking about, right? Because that just wouldn't make sense. If this was a double top, a true double top, if it actually is a double top, we would see some serious repercussions. So don't bite the narrative. Don't believe the narrative of anybody out there trying to tell you it is a double top. I know there's a couple people, I was looking on X as well, who have mentioned this bearish divergence. Mr. Hat, I want to give you a shout out because he brought up a good point. I'm not looking at all the indicators, but there are other indicators that have bearish divergence printed, other time frames and stuff to be considered as well. But what I want to focus on is the daily time frame. I think it is a very relevant time frame and a very dominant time frame at that, right? People are calling for that double top, and I've seen this bearish divergence in the RSI specifically being addressed on some X.com accounts. I haven't really checked anyone on YouTube, but I wouldn't call this bearish divergence. And I even gave a little pop quiz, and AB answered it very quickly and very accurately that this was not bearish divergence, right? And the reason why this is not bearish divergence is because we haven't had the day to close yet, right? Yes, this low here, or this high here is lower than this high, lower high, higher highs. If this were to be bearish divergence, that would be good for a move down to about $69,000, right? It literally would be good for that. That's exactly what the bearish divergence would call for. But that only remains true. That only remains true if today closes red, right? 20 hours, 45 minutes from now, if we close red, if we close below the opening price, which is at $72,704.34, if we close below there today, then yes, we will have bearish divergence. Until then, no. It's just a look, right? This right here, from this high to there, that was bearish divergence, right? Right here, where the RSI was, it was lower. Your daily closing high was higher. That was bearish divergence until it wasn't. You kept closing your days more and more in the green, right? It looked like bearish divergence because you started off the day in the red, clearly, but it wasn't. And that happens all the time. This is the kind of look that we get that really traps people who are new to trading, who are emotionally invested instead of logically invested, right? Don't be emotional with this. Don't look for anything. Don't look for something wrong at like the first glance of something wrong. Look at it for what it is, right? If we take away the RSI and we just remove this whole last section of analysis that we've done, we're in a very bullish position here, right? We're about to break out of new all-time highs. We're about to break out above the high prior to the halving. What have we done every single cycle that's happened, right? We've seen growth over the weeks to come. So unless we don't top off here, or unless we do top off here, we turn around, I don't see a reason why we couldn't expect to see prices above 100,000, 105,000 by the end of November. But again, the monthly goal right now is to close above $70,400, close above this 886, right? $70,400. The daily goal that I would set forth, and we're going to look at the daily, the shorter term time frames to see if this is likely. I already think it is likely personally. I think that we are going to close today green, but the daily goal is to close today green, which would be at $72,704. Okay, close above that, gets rid of the bearish divergence, traps all the people who went short thinking that they were smart betting on this bearish divergence. And really, if we close today green, you guys, I think today, if not tomorrow, which would be by the end of the month, we would finally see those prices above all-time highs, breaking out to new all-time highs. And you know what that means, right? We break out to our pre-halving highs. It's good for at least the next month. We are good for go on the next 3 to 4 weeks, if not more, right? We could absolutely grow past that. And even if we stop, it doesn't mean that it's going to be a significant amount of stop, right? We could grow 3 or 4 weeks, have a like very neutral kind of lagging couple of weeks or 1 week, and then continue to grow. It doesn't have to be this intense consolidation phase like we've experienced here. In fact, I want to be very clear and direct in saying that if we move and when we move up to these prices, I don't expect a consolidation phase like this at all. That might be the last significant that probably is. Not probably. I would bet anything and everything that is the last significant consolidation phase of this magnitude and time for the rest of the cycle. Now, whenever I say time, I mean that, but whenever I say magnitude, maybe I should clear that up and say from a high to a low, we dropped about 33%. We could still see 33% drops along the way. I just don't think it'll take this long. It'll be more volatile. It'll be more crazy, as it always is in this last phase of the bull market, right? But again, let's look at the shorter term stuff to see if we can confirm what I'm theorizing here, which is that we will see a green day today. Again, that's the goal. Get rid of this bearish divergence look. Get a green day, let's continue to grow, stuff like that, right? Volume is increasing on a daily basis. That's 2 days in a row of above average volume on this breakout move, and it's growing. That's nice to see. Doesn't make me think that we're going to turn around here, but time will tell. We'll see. 4-hour time frame, a little bit more of a look like we have topped off, right? And maybe on a 4-hour basis we have, right? You got pretty oversold, or overbought, I'm sorry. You didn't quite hit 90, but you touched that area, you grazed that area. Volume increasing as you're moving up, nice to see. Volume decreasing as you're stalling out. I think that's also nice to see, right? If we move down and volume's decreasing, that's also good. You don't want to see volume pick up whenever it's moving down. Although even if that happens, it's not too detrimental. You know, it matters, but I don't know if it matters that much. We'll see. 4-hour basis, we're pretty overbought. It wouldn't be crazy at all if we came back a little bit. Let's see if we can make sense out of that. High to low here, all the way up. Look at that, the 1886 showing its head again, man. Deep extension hit. So if we were to find support, there'd be I mean, we could find support literally right here. That might have been it, and then we continue to move up, which is always preferred. Or we could move down to about 71,356, 70,711. I wouldn't think we would go below this yellow line here. I don't think we would, right? And this is kind of our like for 16 hours, we were in this zone, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 4-hour candles we were in this zone. Maybe not 16 hours completely. This was the end of this candle and just the beginning of this candle, but at least I would say probably like 10 hours, right? That we were in this zone between the 1414 and the 1272. It would make sense that we either find support at the top of the zone or at the bottom of this zone. It would make sense. So if not, the 1618, the golden ratio itself, that's a perfect area to hold as support too. So it's anybody's guess, and it would make sense. Being this overbought posture down like this, we could come down, find support on the overbought zone itself, that limit line there, and with that, maybe we see a move down again to about 71.3, 70,000.7, something like that could happen. And again, if that does happen, that does not mean that this bearish divergence is active. We could very well move down there 1 or 2 4-hour candles, and then the next or the remainder of the day, we continue to move up and we actually close the day green. So I think it does depend. At the moment, looking at the 4-hour, it wouldn't surprise me if we did move down. But we have 39 minutes and 41 seconds left, 40 seconds left, down 0.46% right now. We could absolutely move up 0.5% in the next 40 minutes. We'll see. Let's look at the 1-hour. 1-hour has a little bit more bearish divergence there, right? That is bearish divergence right there. And you do have volume picking up on your way down. So this is a little bit bearish, right? Volume decreasing as you're moving up, and then it finally picks up when you sell off a little bit, right? No volume as you're moving sideways. I would think, and you have kind of a flat base here with descending highs, I would think you move down based on the 1-hour. What I will say is you've got lower lows on this right here, and you've got higher lows here. That is hidden bullish divergence, which tends to mark continuation, but this overlying bearish divergence, I think, is something to consider and something to pay attention to, right? You've got this high here and a lower high here matching up with this high here and this higher high there. If this bearish divergence were to play out and be true, which to me it looks like it would, I would expect it does based on this time frame, that would be good for move down to about $71,127, which that's right in the range that we addressed just a second ago using our fibs, right? Based on the 4-hour, from this high to this low, you went all the way up to the 1886. The area you'd expect to find support in would be the 1618 to the 1272. This white line literally right in that range of this little pre-consolidation phase. Like, not, I wouldn't even call that a consolidation phase, but on a 4-hour basis, on a 1-hour basis, kind of, on a shorter term time frame basis. So all that to say, we'll wrap it up here in 2 minutes with however many minutes that was of conversation. Hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more content. This is the summary of the video here. I think we're going to move down to about $71,000. We're at 72.2K. I bet we move down probably pretty fast, right? Before, I would think within the next 8 hours, that's my expectation, we would move down there, okay? Maybe even within the next 4 hours, it's possible. But I think within the next 8 hours, just to be safe, we'll probably move down to start off the day down to about $71,000, give or take a couple $100 either direction, right? We could move as low as 70.7K, but I don't think we'd move below there. And then from this area, we'll move up. This is the line, okay? This is the line, but that doesn't mean we have to go there. We could fall just shy of that. We could fall just through that, right? It doesn't have to be exactly there. That's just what the call based on this bearish divergence, that would be like the expected area to go to. And oftentimes in these situations, you do go just a little bit through it, right? So you absolutely could go to that 1272 in itself. So don't be worried about it if it does move down. What we're looking for, again, is a price today to close above $72,704. And then when we do get above our current all-time highs, when we do get above that pre-halving high, we can just close our eyes and rest easy, guys, for the next 3 to 4 weeks and assume that we'll probably see a move up that is something along the lines of 40%. At a minimum, something around 20%, but 40% I think is the expected move here by the end of November. 40% not from where we are, 40% from this pre-halving high, right? And again, that put us at about $105.5 thousand. Right? Technically, actually, a 40% move would be just below that, right? It was 103, 105. 40, that was a 42% move, but 42%, 40%, whatever, right? So, something just above 100K. Anyways, guys, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I appreciate you all very much for being here. Thank you very much. Take care of yourselves. And please don't short, man. If you want to go long, I get it. You can wait to go long at lower prices, but I said it on X.com. I made a post. Anybody or an excrement, I don't know what to call them, man. An X post. There's got to be something. We got to come up with something clever for X, man, because calling them tweets is irrelevant now. I made a post saying anybody shorting here has a death wish, and I genuinely mean that. So please, anybody leverage trading, I mean, not financial advice, I'm not a financial advisor. If you are leverage trading, keep your stop losses tight, keep your take profits tight, because we're not going to go down a lot, right? At the most, not even $2,000 from here. So I just wouldn't even short at this point in time. I would look for an opportunity to long, and that would be that. But I don't know. I'm staying away from leverage trading at the moment. We are at rather critical points. Anything can happen. Time will tell. That's all I got. Take care, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.